So this past Friday, you may have seen or heard of protests in and around the town. We welcome one of the lead organizers, Toby Blomay of Code Pink and Veterans for Peace. Also the website, shutdowndronewarfare.org. Toby, welcome to Crazy Radio.
Thank you very much for inviting us. Inviting me.
Absolutely. Now, let me be clear from the onset. I am a libertarian. I point that out because from the word go, we do have differing philosophies, but I don't think that should make us enemies. I welcome all viewpoints here. That being said, again, we welcome you. Let's start with the part we agree upon. Tell us why you and your organization are against drone use.
Well, first of all, I believe that we should treat people around the world the way we treat each other. And we have really, really strict laws. We don't execute people unless they have a trial where evidence is brought forth to support that they've committed any crimes. I don't believe in execution personally. I think we should abolish the death penalty. But when we treat people around the world with remotely controlled drones that carry missiles and fire missiles and kill people without having any evidence that they've committed any wrong, it's a complete violation on their right to life and the right to have justice on their beings. So we are people that gather together to oppose U.S. drone killing. It's totally immoral and illegal against international and national laws.
And I 100% agree with you. As a matter of fact, shortly before the American withdrawal from Afghanistan, we saw how the drones can not work in our favor by when it killed a family of four simply heading to an airport, if you recall. So I agree with you 100% on that.
It was a family of, I believe it was 7.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it was a family. It was 7 people from an extended family. No, excuse me. It was 10. Thank you for bringing up that story. It was 10 people, 3 adults and 7 children. And most of the children that were killed were very young children. It was a really tragic, huge mistake. But the military took 2 weeks to admit that they made a mistake. They called it a righteous strike when they killed 7 children. It was horrendous, actually.
And like you, I'm also not okay with the death penalty. As a matter of fact, the only time I think it's okay to take a human life is if you or someone you're protecting is in immediate danger. And a family of 10 traveling to the airport is no danger to anybody. Someone that's been in prison 20 years for a killing they committed when they were younger is no danger to anybody. So you and I do agree on that. I am very much in favor of life.
Thank you. And we need more people in the world that are in favor of the right to live.
100% agree. What is your organization's message on Palestine?
Well, I don't know if I can speak for Code Pink 100%, but I can speak for myself.
Okay.
The people of Palestine have been occupied for decades, and what doesn't get brought up in mainstream media is that these people are fighting for their liberation, their right to have their land back that was stolen from them. And so, this didn't start on October 7th. It started even before the founding of Israel. And in the founding of Israel, they displaced hundreds of thousands of human beings of Palestine, taking their land away. And more and more land is stolen with every year. People's houses are destroyed or taken over in Palestine. And so you hear a lot about Hamas this and Hamas that, but, Hamas can be thought of as an armed resistance to occupation, which according to international law, people have a right who are occupied to fight for their liberation. I don't believe in violence. I don't think violence is an answer at all. But, and we don't even know what happened on October 7th fully. There's a lot of evidence to support that a lot of the Israelis that were killed by friendly fire. But killing 14,000 children, it's probably more than that now, is not justification. There's no justification for that. Children have the right to live. They have a right to shelter, life, food. Now we have the vast majority of people in Gaza who are hungry. And some of my members of Code Pink are actually trying to get on a flotilla leaving Istanbul to bring tons of food to people who are hungry. And Israel is now shooting aid workers who are trying to deliver food to people. They're shooting the people who are hungry, are trying to get food off of food trucks in Palestine and Gaza. It's horrendous, the level of criminality that's going on and violations against human rights. So we as an organization stand strongly against this and defend the people of Palestine to live without fear of unjust, killing and starvation. Israel has a campaign now that's supporting forced starvation, forcing children to starve to death. That's just horrendous. We want diplomacy. Weapons are not solving the world's problems. We want diplomacy. And if we used experts who had the skills for diplomacy, we wouldn't have so much suffering in the world.
Why doesn't your organization focus on feeding the American children who are also starving?
Well, that's a good question. The problem is what we're an organization that focuses on global issues, and we're all for feeding people that are hungry here. In fact, we are strongly against this excessive militarism that exists in this country, where 3% of the money spent on, the military spending in this country could solve the problem of world hunger, not just at home, but abroad. If we just cut the military spending by 3%, we could end world hunger. There's homeless people all over the country. It's obscene to look at the people in need in this country that aren't being taken care of when we spend trillions of dollars on war every year. And so one of the reasons we're against war is the cost of war that should be spent on human needs. So in calling for a cutback in militarism in this country is actually calling for taking care of the needs at home and abroad, taking care of people who are hungry, providing shelter that people who are homeless, giving education, making college education affordable or even free for that matter. So many needs that we have in healthcare. The senior citizens in our country that can't afford their medicine. Instead of spending trillions of dollars on war, we should be spending money on the basic human needs that people have in this country, including jobs, a lot of unemployment.
Toby, with all due respect, you avoided the question. Your solution to feeding the starving people over in the Middle East was to take trucks of food and tons of food. When I asked you about American kids, you jumped to cutting military spending as opposed to what I asked. Why doesn't your organization focus on feeding children here at home?
Well, I think we should be doing both, but you must understand that any organization can't solve all the world's problems.
I agree, but you're not going to be able to solve the problem over there, but we can solve the problem here pretty easily if more organizations would focus on feeding the Americans who are starving.
Well, what I'm saying is if we didn't spend trillions of dollars on war, we would have the funds to not only feed hungry people in this country and around the world, but provide health care, provide education, all the things that people need. So I think I answered the question pretty well. You and I must respectfully disagree about this.
Okay, so the answer to taking care of the hungry people over in Israel and the Palestinians who are starving is to go there personally with tons of food, but the solution here is to cut spending. I just want to make sure I understand before I move on.
Well, I don't know. It's kind of a simplification that you're giving right now, and I think that we who are involved in Code Pink, I could say that most of us would agree that we embrace all people of the world as our brothers and sisters, and it's not just about taking care of Americans; it's taking care of human beings that are in need. So I am all for providing food for people who are hungry in this country. If we, again, didn't have so much of our tax money spent on war, we would have the money to feed people. In a short period of my life, when I was a young adult with two children, a single mother, I lived in the Bay Area. I still live there now. And I got barely $600 a month to live on. It was not anywhere near an amount of money and it was only for a short period of my life till I get my feet on the ground. So instead of spending money on all these weapons, We should be providing money for single parents, mothers who have children who are trying to get their feet on the ground and give them enough support. There's so many other areas that people have need in this country. So I think you're not hearing my words clearly. It's not just about the people of Gaza, but what's so obscene about the people of Gaza is that this is a genocide that's going on with our weapons supporting Israel to commit a genocide on a people. And so it calls for extreme measures on our part as U.S. citizens to not be silent. Just as during World War II, the Germans who spoke up against the Holocaust, and many did, and took risks, and some of them were executed, so they're speaking out against the injustice. Luckily, we don't face, as Americans, the risk of being executed for speaking out for the people of Palestine. But when there's genocide going on, we have a responsibility when our government's complicit in the genocide.
We're speaking with Toby Blomay of Code Pink and Veterans for Peace, website shutdowndronewarfare.org. Toby, let's get back to Holloman Air Force Base. Why was your organization focused at Holloman?
Well, we have been organized resisting drone warfare since 2009, when most of America didn't even know we were killing people remotely like this. And we've a growing movement across the country against U.S. drone warfare. And so a couple years ago, I noticed at Creech Air Force Base, which is really the kind of the Papa Daddy of drone bases in the desert of Nevada, I learned that they were, and that's where we've been having our protests for many years. I learned that they moved the training program to southern New Mexico. And over the course of 6 months, I learned that they were graduating 600, and then it became 700 pilots and operators every year. So we have to ask ourselves as Americans, what in the heck? This is just one training base, the largest training base in the United States. It's training drone operators and pilots. Why are we training 700 pilots and operators from one base? What are we using these people for? And we have to ask ourselves, what is happening to the people that get trained in these programs? They're sitting in front of computers, killing people thousands of miles away. They're suffering terribly from moral injury. This is all well documented. Some of them end up committing suicide or become, they have horrible incidences of killing, mass numbers of people. Like there was an operator in Holloman, the very base we're talking about, who committed a mass murder in Texas. There's many stories like that. We are protesting this program because we know that it also does harm to our own soldiers, our airmen, mostly men, but there are women in the program too. There's a high suicide rate in the drone program. It's not what humans are supposed to be doing. It's killing people in other countries remotely while they're sitting in front of a computer in the desert. We're standing up for the injustice of it all and the harm it does to our own military. And we want our young men and women in uniform to be doing things that do good to society. Now we have a man named Daniel Hale, who was in the drone program, who's finishing up on a 45-month sentence for exposing and leaking some of the truths within military documents that 9 out of 10 people killed by U.S. drones are the unintended targets. So the U.S., even if we can justify the intended target, which we can't necessarily, it's what the U.S. government wants to kill a human being. I can't trust that even the person the U.S. decided to kill is a justified killing. But 9 out of 10 of those killed are not the intended target. This is really immoral and criminal, and it really needs to stop. So we're acting out of conscience, and we put our bodies on the line. We're out there vigiling in front of the base every day during rush hour, in the morning and afternoon. We usually pick one day during the week where we do a nonviolent interruption of business, which is usually in the form of a blockade, saying, you can't do this. This is wrong. We need to stop this. Just like during civil rights movement, people sat on the cafes and lunch counters saying, you can't make laws to keep people of color from eating in a restaurant. It should be open to everybody. We should have equal rights for all human beings. They took tremendous courage to stand up against the injustice and break local laws to stand up for higher universal laws. So our universal laws is everyone has the right to live. And if anyone's going to be executed, at the very least, evidence should be put forth. There should be a trial with a fair judge and jury to decide someone's guilt. But instead, the U.S. government thinks they have some special right to go around and assassinate people around the world. This is really wrong, and it's against our own laws. Our laws say we shouldn't be assassinating.
I would agree with you, and I don't trust the government with my income taxes, so I sure as hell don't trust them when it comes to human life. So like I said, when it comes to the life, you and I are on the same side on this. You visited the zoo, and my understanding is you weren't there to see the bears or the lemurs. What message were you at the zoo sharing?
Well, we were actually just out on White Sands Boulevard in Alamogordo. There were actually about a dozen students that came all the way from Las Cruces, young students in college who feel as strong as we do against this injustice. And they joined us, and we had an hour-and-a-half protest outside on White Sands Boulevard in front of the zoo and Arlington Park, I think it's called.
Alameda Park Zoo.
Alameda Park Zoo, yeah, thank you. And we got a lot of support, actually, by the way. There was a lot of waves. One woman stopped and gave my friend Peggy a $2 bill saying thank you for being there. Later that afternoon, we all together, the students and ourselves, joined our last vigil in the afternoon at the Holloman. And a minister in training who lives in town saw us on the highway, didn't know about us, pulled her car over, pulled a sign out of our car, and joined our protest outside the base. She was so excited to see us, saying that her church stands for, works for social justice and recognizes the injustice of the U.S. drone program. And we've met a number of local people this week. This is our second year coming out for a week of protest, and we're really wanting to connect to the community and educate the community about what really is going on at Holloman. And again, to recognize that the people being trained in these programs, they're going to be damaged when they start getting involved in killing people so easily with computers. They are going to have to live with that for the rest of their lives if they survive, because some of them commit suicide. So we're doing it for them as well.
Unfortunately, that happens even when you're in hand-to-hand combat as well. The warriors, oftentimes, they do end up with severe depression when they're in any type of combat, whether it's hand-to-hand, long-distance, shooting missiles from a ship, or drone warfare. So that is one of the ugliest parts about the entire Defense Department. I do agree. We are having a good conversation, and I do, again, appreciate you, Toby Blome, to come here. There's lots of other topics I'd like to discuss with you sometime. China, some of your other protests, the seemingly embrace of socialism and other similar philosophies, but those are going to have to wait for another day because we are way over time. Again, the website, shutdowndronewarfare.org. Toby, before I let you go, I'm going to give you the last word.
Yeah, I encourage everybody to watch a film that educates about the drone warfare program. It's one of the members, it's about 3 whistleblowers who came out and started to speak out against the program. And one of them is Daniel Hale, who's finishing up on a 5-month sentence. I mentioned him earlier. It's a film that was made before we knew who the whistleblower was, Daniel Hale, but then he was later sentenced. Anyway, he's an amazing human being, and he's going to have his freedom soon, this July, supposedly. And I learned about the drone program by just watching National Bird. You can find it online, National Bird, and you can actually get it for free on YouTube, I just found out. So check out YouTube, National Bird, and watch the film and educate your family and friends, because it's really, the more well-informed we are as a public, the less likely our government's going to be doing wrongful criminal activity. We have to stay informed.
And yet another thing you and I agree on, the government needs to stop all of their illegal and immoral activities. Again, Toby, thank you so much for joining us, and I do want to have another conversation with you another day because it sounds like you and I could probably talk for hours on end.
Well, I really enjoyed this interview. It's one of the best ones I've had in my life. So thank you for inviting me, and I look forward. And will you send me the link, of course, to the interview down the road?
Absolutely. I should have that for you within a couple of hours.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Anthony.
Have a good
I look forward to talking to you again in the future.